and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video you are seeing of mine, then welcome. Now, I went back to my closest Target and they had this back in stock, the Colourpop and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer collection. They finally had it back and I'm so excited. I had to pick it up. I never bought this palette last year and I kind of regretted not picking it up because, I mean, it's definitely a color scheme that I like. It's really got these pretty neutrals in it, some pinky neutrals as well, and it has a little pop of green, which I do like green eyeshadow. I think that's really pretty. Of course, we have, I'm trying not to get it to reflect too much, we have Rudolph and Clarice on the mirror. So I will be doing some swatches with this palette as well as 3 different eye looks. I want to make sure I'm using all the shades in the palette, so if all that sounds interesting, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, here we have the Rudolph palette. I was really sad when I missed out on this palette last year, so I am so happy to have it in my collection this year because this is the type of color scheme that I love. It's pretty basically a neutral palette, so let's go ahead and get started on these swatches. Okay, let's just do the next 3. I'm going to go over here to this pretty green. Ooh, that's pretty. Not sure what that is. I must have got that on me from before, so we'll just ignore that. There we go. They're pretty. Okay, let's do the next 3. Ooh, pretty. Wow. Well, so far, everybody is looking really pretty. Okay, then we got the last 3. Okay, let me see if I can put this one right here. Here we go. And then there we have the whole palette swatched out. Really pretty. I cannot wait to sit down and do some eye looks with this palette. So stunning. Okay, I just let a random number generator pick out my first 5 shades. I'm going to do look number 1 over here, look 2, and then I'll do look 3 tomorrow. There's 15 shades in this palette, so 5 shades per look. That'll let me be able to use the entire palette. So the color scheme it picked out for me was this right here. Full Power, Independent Together, North Pole, Mush Mush, and Lots of Tinsel. I'm going to take the shade Independent Together on a blending brush from e.l.f. I'm going to start running that in my crease. There's a lot of kick up in the pan. These shades are really, really soft. That doesn't bother me, but I always like to mention anything like that because I know some people don't like a lot of kick up when it comes to their eyeshadow. Using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Full Power. Okay, that's a deeper shade, so I only dipped into it one time. I'm just going to stamp it on my outer portion of my lid. Can always go back in and build it up, but I'd rather start with a small amount first. Alright, we're going to take a little bit more and go right into that crease with that. Okay, I'm going to take that shade Lots of Tinsel on a concealer brush from e.l.f. and I will be spraying my brush with some setting spray. Okay, we're going to place that in the very center. I'm using a brush instead of my finger. Well, one thing, I do have these nails, but also I want to use both shimmer shades on my lid, so I want to keep them in a certain spot, and a brush gives me a little more precision. So we're just going to keep this shade right in the very center. That's pretty. Kind of tap on the edge on this side. Not going to worry so much about the inner portion over here because I'm about to put another shimmer shade. I'm going to make this shade blend in a little more with that matte. Then using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade North Pole, and I'll be spraying my brush again with some setting spray. And then that shade's going to go right here on this inner portion. Ooh, that is pretty. Kind of like an elegant cranberry, what are those little things? Candy corn. Cranberry candy corn with the light to the dark. Okay, so I'm just going to do some mascara and a lash, or well, I might end up just doing mascara. I'll see when I go off camera and I'll think about it, but I'm going to just do that and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, I did end up just using some mascara. I'm using the Too Faced Better Than Sex, the Foreplay, I think, well, I feel like focus for me, there we go. The Foreplay Mascara Primer, and then on top of that, the Better Than Sex Mascara. Just had two little minis here. Honestly, this primer makes a huge difference because, I mean, usually when I wear the Better Than Sex mascara by itself, it looks a little more on the natural side for me. And this primer kind of elevates it a little bit. It makes my lashes look a little more fuller. So far I'm liking that. Alright, and the fifth shade is Mush Mush. I'm going to take that on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to run that all along my lower lash line. This is the last shade that the random generator picked out for me. This is a really pretty cool tone shade. I'd like to see that in the crease too. When I use this palette in the future, I'm going to try that out. Okay, and here is look number 1 all done. And here is the colors that it picked out for me for look number 2. We have Christmassy Time, Snowbank, Elf Practice, Misfit Toys, and Little Buck. Okay, so it picked out some pretty deep mattes for me, so I'm just going to use a very light hand. I'm going to go in with the shade Little Buck on a blending brush from e.l.f. But that shade's pretty dark for my crease, for me, so I'm just going to take a very teeny amount of that and tap off the excess. I just dip one time. And we'll start running that in my crease. I will say though, these shades blend out really well, but I didn't want to take or pick up too much on my brush with this shade. Using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Christmasy Time. And place that on this outer corner. I just dipped one time. I will say though, these shades are really nice and buildable, so you can definitely get more of an impact with them, but I'm just trying to start off on the softer side so it's easier to blend. And then you can always go back in with a little more. Kind of really stamp that in that crease. Okay, I'm going to go in with the shade Elf Practice on a concealer brush from e.l.f. and I will be spraying my brush with some setting spray. And same thing, I'm going to put this right in the very center of my lid. Green eyeshadow is so pretty. And just tap. everywhere that shimmer meets that matte green. Then on that same brush, I'm going to take the shade Misfit Toys. I'll be spraying my brushes as well. And that shade we'll place right here. Don't know if it really goes together well, but I kind of like it. I think that's kind of pretty. It's different. And I like how we got kind of like the reddish and then the greenish tone over here. Okay, so just let me do my mascara off camera and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, I only have one shade left in this look, but it's a shimmer shade, so I am going to put down a matte shade first. So I'm going to go back in with the shade Little Buck on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to place that on the outer portion of my lower lash line. Kind of wipe off some of that excess a little bit. I might have picked up too much on this little brush. I'm going to drag that about halfway. And then lastly, I'm going to take the shade Snowbank on that same angled brush and place that on the beginning portion of my lower lash line. Oh, that is a pretty shade. It'll be pretty all over the lid. Really nice and pigmented. And here is look number 2, all done. Okay, here is the third and final color scheme. And I think this shade right here is so interesting. It's like a purple to like a brown. Hoping you can kind of see what I mean. But we have Eat, Eat, Handsome Nose, Gadzooks, Up, Up and Away, and Ready Santa. Okay, I'm going to take the shade Eat, Eat on a blending brush from e.l.f. I'm going to start running that into my crease. I don't think I picked up a lot. I might have to go back in. But it's building really nicely. Like I keep going back in and building it up and it's doing really nicely. On that same brush, I'm going to take the shade Ready Santa. That's definitely, I think that's the deepest shade in the palette, so I just tapped my brush in about twice, really small. Because I don't want to pick up too much too quick. I will say these shades blend really nicely together. I have not struggled one time with blending using this palette, so I'm really happy to see that. Then I'm going to take the shade Handsome Nose on a concealer brush from e.l.f. I'm going to try this shade without spraying my brush with any setting spray. I just want to see how it performs on its own. And it looks like it's doing really well. Wow. That is really intense. Without me having to spray the brush, that's pretty. And just tap over the edge a little bit here. Make sure it blends in with that deeper shade. Okay, I'm just going to do my mascara and lash and my other eye off camera, and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, these lashes right here are from Ioni. These are their 3D foam ink lashes from their Voyage collection. The Eiffel Tower Wispy Crisscross Flare. They just come in a packaging like that. Then I'm going to go in with the shade Gadzooks on a small angled brush from e.l.f. and place that on the outer half of my lower lash line. I have one more shade and then I'll have used all the shades in the palette. And on that same brush, I'm going to take the shade Up, Up and Away. And that shade is going to be placed right here on the beginning portion of that lower lash line. And that's every shade in the palette now. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the shade North Pole and pop that on the inner corner. And here you have look number 3. Okay, and there you have all 3 looks with this eyeshadow palette. I have now used every single shade, and if you're curious about anything else that's on the rest of my face, I will have everything listed and linked for you below. But I really love this palette. I am so happy that I picked it up, that Target did restock and I managed to get one, because I mean, this is definitely a palette that I love so much. If you take away, first of all, these green shades, I mean, you see it's nothing but a pretty everyday neutral shade. And I do love the pops of green in here. I think green eyeshadow is absolutely stunning. But I feel like if you missed out last year, but maybe you wanted this palette and you can find it again this year, definitely. I don't think you'd be disappointed with the quality at all. I feel like this is probably one of my most favorite Colourpop palettes. Now, this one and the 1111 eyeshadow palette that I have from them, I love both of these, and I think this is an amazing quality. I know that this palette is a little bit more, I think, than some of their other ones. I want to say this is like a $25 palette, but for me, it was worth every penny. I love it. I think it's so pretty. It's a perfect palette to get a bunch of everyday looks out of. So definitely a winner in my book. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you will please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you haven't already. And please make sure to follow me over on Instagram at Jessica Dearly, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!